Hello dear viewers, support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it, and also make sure you comment your thought. Now let's start the video. The Hall of 1,000 Seats is the center of power in Korth, where the royal family rules the entire Korth. The royal family sat high on the huge wooden chairs of their ancestors. The wooden chairs were arranged in an arc, rising step by step from the marble floor to the high circular ceiling. The past glory of Korth was painted on the ceiling. Those chairs were not only huge, but also had strange carvings. The gilded surface was bright and brilliant, inlaid with amber, agate, jade, and emerald. Each chair was different and competed with each other. Jack was invited to the Palace of Thousands by Mavis. The luxury here made Jack realize that he had underestimated the financial resources of the ancient nobles. Mavis looked at the 20 Unsullied behind Jack and knew that Jack did not trust him, so he asked the slaves to bring up a box of gems. "This is my meeting gift. Nice to meet you." "Jack, is that a baby dragon in your arms?" "Yes, it's a young dragon. Nice to meet you, Prince Mavis." Jack probably guessed Mabius's intentions at this time, and it seemed that the information he had seen on the forum before was probably true. Although Korth is officially ruled by the Prince of Korth, the management of the city is actually in the hands of the Chamber of Commerce and wizards. Merchants and wizards are the aristocracy of Korth. In the American TV series, Zaro finally unites with the wizard to kill the remaining 13 giants and then declares that he will be the king of Korth. This shows that at that time the royal family of Korth probably no longer had the ability to resist. As expected, he took Jack to the palace behind the 1,000-seat palace, and asked the slaves to prepare food and wine. While Mabius was getting Jack drunk, he was making insinuations about Jack's origins. Jack also cooperated and told his origin. After Jack took a sip of wine, he said drunkenly, "I come from an earl family in Westeros. A medium-sized gold mine was discovered in the territory. Although I am the second eldest child and have no inheritance rights, because I look like my father, he customized a large ship for me. Become a businessman. I'm very lucky and have successfully established a foothold in the business world. To put it bluntly, my wealth can easily support a standing army of thousands of people." Mabius's eyes lit up. The royal family of Korth had 4,000 standing troops, but they were all supported by the money of merchant nobles. The money provided by that group of businessmen was just enough to maintain a standing army of 4,000, and even starting from the past few years, the supply was gradually reduced. Mabius had not thought about eradicating these merchants before, but these merchants also had many slave soldiers. Once they take action, the Chamber of Commerce will cut off the supply and slowly wear out the royal army. But if the royal family has the support of other businessmen, the situation will be different. Especially for a wealthy businessman like Jack, who owns a giant ship, Mabius has every chance to eradicate these chambers of commerce in Korth and truly rule Korth. Mabius never thought that Jack was bragging. After all, the Poseidon was the best proof. But Mabius was in no hurry to present her ideas to Jack. After all, for businessmen, the cost of supporting a war is very risky. If you lose, you will lose everything, and may even lead to bankruptcy. So Mabius decided to slowly test and fool Jack. After having a full meal, Mabius arranged for Jack to stay in a luxurious palace. Jack was a little surprised and wondered if he had guessed wrong. But if he guessed wrong, how could the royal family of Korth entertain him so warmly? But if my guess is correct, why didn't Mabius speak? The two exchanged rumors about their own motives, and finally Mabius said that he would come to visit again tomorrow. In addition, Mabius also hinted that the 13 giants are not good people. Let Jack be careful not to believe anything the 13 giants say. Jack watched Mabius leave, summoned an Unsullied, and asked him to bring 80 more Unsullied to the Poseidon. On land, even in cities near the sea, Jack was extremely careful. At the same time, Jack asked another Unsullied to find Mabius and ask Mabius where he could buy good horses. "You just said that I like horses very much. It is my dream to own a great horse. If he is smart enough, he should know how to do it." The two Unsullied took the order and left. A good horse would allow Jack to quickly escape to the sea when faced with a siege. At the same time, Jack was also testing Mabius to see if Mabius really wanted something from him. If Mabius just told where to buy horses, it meant that Mabius was simply interested in the young dragon, and Jack would have to return to the Poseidon as soon as possible. And if Mabius directly sends a good horse, it means that Mabius has something to ask of him. Jack sent 3 more unsullied people in disguise and went out to understand the current situation in Korth. After the arrangements were made, Jack began to train Colaxio again. Placing a piece of raw meat that he had brought with him in front of Colaxio, Jack whispered, Dracarys, meaning dragon flame. Daenerys uses this to command her dragon to breathe out dragon flames, and Jack can just use it, which is really convenient. His scarlet red mixed with some black dragon flames spurted out from Colaxio's mouth. Different dragons will spray different colors of dragon flames. The color of dragon flames is generally black, with Viserions being a light golden color with hints of red and orange. Lygai's dragon flame is orange with a slight green texture, and Drogon's dragon flame was as black as scales. In just 2 seconds the raw meat was burnt black. Koraku swallowed the burnt meat and looked at Jack expectantly. However, Jack did not give Koraku any more food, but directly ordered dragon flame. Koraku looked at Jack in confusion, as if asking, "Where is my food?" Jack didn't waste any words, took off his shoes directly, and slapped it with the sole of his shoe. Regardless of Koraku, who was beaten dizzy, Jack shouted the order again, "Dragon flame!" Although Koraku was a little dizzy this time, he still opened his mouth and spit out dragon flame. Jack immediately took out a piece of roasted meat and fed it to Koraku, praising him. "Good boy, very good." The intelligence of dragons is not low, but it is definitely not high. An adult dragon has the intelligence of a teenager, but unlike a child, a dragon is more powerful and more brutal. In the final analysis, the dragons in the world of Game of Thrones are more like beasts. There is a big difference between dragons and humans, or dragons that speak human language, in myths and legends. So Jack thinks that dragon training is very important, and obedience training must be started when the dragon is young. Otherwise it will be difficult to train absolute obedience when it grows up. As for the dragon mother and Drogon in the later part of the TV series, it is actually more like a mother-son relationship rather than a superior-subordinate concept. And the first step for Jack to train the dragon is the command. Important and serious commands are repeated only once. And if there is no response the first time, action must be taken, sticks or food rewards, or both. Otherwise, if a command is repeated 7 or 8 times, the majesty of the command or Jack himself will be greatly reduced. Once Koraxu has his own ideas later, he will execute his own ideas without listening to orders. So Koraxu must be made accustomed to it, so that it knows that listening to oneself is good and necessary. The training ended in the evening, and Jack asked the slaves to prepare a roasted cow for Koraxu. Dragons have a large appetite and grow very fast. The growth rate of a young dragon to an adult dragon is very fast. A dragon will continue to grow in its life of more than 200 years, but the growth rate will become slower and slower. Koraxu is only 1 month old now, and its body length has increased from 10 centimeters. The growth rate is getting faster and faster, and it may not be long before Jack can hold Koraxu. Soon the roasted cow was brought up by the servants. Koraxu stared at the roasted cow with his eyes wide open, drooling all over the floor. But Jack's training results are remarkable. Even though his saliva is all over the floor, Koraxu still did not pounce on it. To raise a dragon, you have to control it. If you don't control it, it will have no sense of hierarchy and will not obey your orders. Jack picked up the knife and fork and ate the beef leg beautifully. After he finished eating, Jack ordered Koraxu to eat. After getting Jack's permission, Koraxu immediately entered the eating state and swallowed the beef crazily. When Koraxu was eating, Jack kept reaching out to stop Koraxu from eating. And Koraxu's reaction made Jack very satisfied. Koraxu would stop eating every time he reached out. "Captain, someone is looking for you outside. It's a wizard." "Wizard?" Jack raised his eyebrows. The wizard was very interested in dragons. Hearing that Jack also had a baby dragon, he naturally wanted to meet the father of dragons and his baby dragons. "Let him in." Soon, under the leadership of Ellie, the wizard was brought to Jack. After the wizard saluted gracefully, he said, "I come from the Immortal Temple. It's an honor to meet you, the father of dragons." The Immortal Temple is the power center of the wizards in Korth. People usually call it the Temple of Dust. Many people go there to seek enlightenment and power, but only a few can come out. Jack waved his hand and said, "Don't call me the father of dragons. I don't like this title. You can call me the Sea King." The wizard's eyes twitched slightly. I'm still the god of the sea. But the wizard still smiled. Mr. Poseidon, it's like this. Our 13 giants are holding a dinner party. The mother of dragons will also be there. Don't you want to see the children of the mother of dragons? The wizard glanced at Korakshu, who was eating on the table, and his heart was full of greed. Dragons are the origin of magic. Since the appearance of the red comet, the magic of the whole world has begun to revive, and the magic tide has begun to rise. 4 young dragons appeared in Korth at the same time. The wizards of the Immortal Temple believed that this was a gift from God. However, the wizards only have ideas about Daenerys's dragons, and they haven't thought about Jack's dragons for the time being. After all, the Unsullied and Poseidon following Jack are showing Jack's strong strength. As for Daenerys, to put it nicely, she is the mother of dragons, but in reality she is just a remnant of the previous dynasty of Westeros. She doesn't even have a ship to return to Westeros. And in the eyes of the wizard, the 3 brothers of Drogon fit their impression of dragons, or fantasy. As for Carax, although it can be seen that he is a dragon, but his appearance is too evil, and the wizard thinks that Carax is more like a demon dragon than a real dragon. Where are you holding the banquet? Can I bring the Unsullied? The wizard took a deep breath obscurely, although assassinations often happen in Essos. But assassinations are still very shameless in people's eyes. Under normal circumstances, no host will assassinate guests during a banquet. The wizard doesn't understand why this man is so cautious. To put it bluntly, this man is too cowardly. Look at the mother of dragons, who entered Korth with more than 20 centaurs, and there are less than 10 men who can fight. You might as well stop calling him the father of dragons and call him the father of cowardice, the god of cowardice. Of course, you can bring 2 Unsullied to the banquet. No, I want to bring 20. You have to prepare a table of delicious food for my men, otherwise I won't go. Prince Mavis should also prepare a banquet. Okay, no problem. We will prepare a table of delicious food. The wizard's voice was a little trembling, and I don't know if it was because of anger. Jack looked at the wizard's back, thinking about how to get some benefits from the 13 giants. After all, it will take some time for the civil strife in Korth, and it is not the best choice to plunder directly by force now. Just as Jack was thinking, the Unsullied who went to meet Mavis came back, holding a tall chestnut horse in his hand. Captain, this horse was given to you by Prince Mavis. It is said that it cost tens of thousands of gold coins to get it from the Dothraki. It is not yet an adult. Jack's eyes lit up. In ancient times, horses were like cars, and the one in front of Jack was undoubtedly a top BMW. It is over 1.8 meters tall before reaching adulthood, and it is definitely not a problem for it to be 2 meters tall after reaching adulthood. Good horse, really good horse! Jack stepped forward and gently stroked its red mane. And the BMW was very docile and did not show any resistance, which made Jack like it even more. Let's call you Blazing Fire, you are so obedient. Jack gave him a name and at the same time thought about how to fleece the 13 giants. When it was completely dark, the moonlight and torches illuminated the prosperous Korth. Jack rode Blazing Fire and was led by a Chamber of Commerce slave to a manor. The center of the manor is a venue the size of a football field, where countless businessmen gather. They tasted the wine in their hands and looked at Daenerys in the center like monkeys. At this time, Daenerys looked a little embarrassed. She always felt that these people were looking at monkeys, which was a bad feeling. At this time, the slave who led Jack to the banquet wanted to move the blaze away, but Jack refused. The slave looked embarrassed and could only ask the 13 giants for instructions. Not long after, a group of people came over in great force, and the fat white man Yannick at the head greeted them with a smile on his face. Yannick is the most powerful among the 13 giants. He relies on spices to raise his prices, and spices are sometimes more expensive than gold. I'm very sorry, Mr. Poseidon, horses are not allowed into the banquet, but don't worry, the slaves will take good care of your baby. Jack looked uncomfortable and said, "This is the BMW that Prince Mavis personally gave to me. He also gave me a lot of gems. He is a good man. If something goes wrong with the Blazing Fire, Prince Mavis invites me to the banquet tomorrow. What should I do?" Yannick's smiling little eyes flashed with a trace of anger. This Yannick has been testing the bottom line of the 13 giants recently. That iron cock of Mavis must have some agenda for giving Jack so many gifts. As for Mabius's plot, Yannick knew it without thinking. He just wanted to completely get rid of the control of the Chamber of Commerce. With a sneer in his heart, Yannick showed a friendly smile on his face. Don't worry, Mavis is a gentle prince, and there will definitely be no problem with your blazing fire, trust me. In addition, we have prepared many gifts for the Dragon Father. I hope you like them. After speaking, Yannick clapped his hands and the slaves came up carrying several boxes of treasures. These are our greeting gifts. There is no need to refuse them. It's just a small token of appreciation. Jack ordered the 4 Unsullied to return to the Sea Emperor with a bag full of treasures, and then took the remaining 6 Unsullied into the banquet. Jack only brought 10 Unsullied. There were a total of 80 Unsullied in Court City, and the rest of the Unsullied were all near the manor. Arriving at the banquet center, Yannick solemnly introduced Jack to other businessmen. This is the father of dragons, Jack Poseidon. His Poseidon is 70 meters long. Everyone immediately applauded to express their welcome, which was in obvious contrast with Daenerys' situation. Whether it was the Colaxio in Jack's arms or the Poseidon, they were enough to earn the heartfelt respect of this group of businessmen. The tonnage of a merchant ship represents its strength, and strength can make people respect it. Jack looked at Daenerys, who was not far away. She was 1.65 meters tall, had silver hair and purple eyes, and had exquisite facial features. She was far more beautiful than the actors in American TV series. However, Jack thought it looked better with long hair reaching waist level. At this time, Dany's hair had just reached her neck. It seemed that the fire had indeed burned away her hair. Then the banquet officially started, the businessmen began to chat, and Jack came to Daenerys' side immediately. From a timid and cowardly exiled princess, to the unburnt one, mother of dragons, and Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Jack really wants to communicate with Dany. Hello, what should I call you? Mother of Dragons? This title is as stupid as Father of Dragons. Dany frowned and said with a hint of displeasure. My name is Daenerys Targaryen. Besides, I don't think the titles Mother of Dragons or Father of Dragons are stupid. We all have true dragon blood. Dragon's parents. Dany didn't expect that Jack would find the title Father of Dragons stupid. As a descendant of the Targaryen family, shouldn't we be proud of our bloodline, even if we are a Blackfire bastard? Jack picked up a glass of wine from a maid's tray, took a sip and said, I am Jack Poseidon first, then the Blackfire descendant, and finally the Dragon Father. To be honest, I really hate the title Dragon Father. It gives me a feeling that owning a dragon is my honor. I shouldn't be honored by Kolaki. On the contrary, Kolaki should be proud of having me as his father. Just as Dany was about to retort, Jack released the colacho in his hand and let it eat freely on the table. Why do you keep your dragon in a cage? Jack blocked what Dany wanted to retort. Dany looked at the 3 Drogon brothers who were locked in a cage behind her, and said after a moment, True dragons are powerful and confident. As dragon parents, we have the obligation to control the true dragons from harming innocent people. Jack nodded in agreement. You are right. We should control the real dragon not to hurt innocent people. So are your children disobedient. Drogon in the cage stared at Corixio. Dragons can live in groups or alone. When living in groups, dragons are similar to ordinary beasts, and they all have a clear hierarchy. And there can only be one head dragon or dragon king, not necessarily the eldest, but definitely the strongest. Therefore, struggles between individual dragons are very common, especially young dragons with strong talents and the same age, such as Drogon and Corixio now. But Kolak was a workboy and ignored Drogon, who was shouting and protesting. Daenerys said, You'd better lock up your dragon. There are many people here. It will be troublesome if you hurt people. Daenerys warned that if Corixio hurts the noble merchants here, it may affect her plan to borrow the ship. A dragon is a dragon, and a human is a human. You can't really regard a dragon as your own child, and even if it is your own child, it needs to be educated honestly, right? Colaxio, come here, Jack called directly. Upon hearing Jack's order, Colaxio immediately stopped his meal journey, flapped his wings and came to Jack's side. This scene not only surprised the merchants who were watching, but also surprised Dany, the mother of dragons. You must know that Drogon and the others are not so obedient. Even when the 3 dragons were fighting for food, she couldn't even stop them. The merchants talked a lot, and at this time they also discovered that it seemed that Jack's dragon was more obedient, but Daenerys' dragon needed to be kept in a cage. Not even honest inside the cage. Jack stepped forward and opened the cage where Drogon was imprisoned. Drogon immediately rushed out and landed in front of Corixio. Drogon looked at Corixiu warily, and at the same time he kept growling. Corixiu was also in the same state, with the same low growl coming from his mouth, and sporadic scarlet firelight flashed between his teeth. "Quiet," Jack ordered again. Corixiu glanced at Jack, then stopped growling, but still looked at Drogon warily. "You see, dragons are very dangerous animals. If they are not properly trained, there will be a lot of trouble in the teenage dragon period." At this time, Dany, who did not believe in evil, also asked Drogon to be quiet. But Drogon turned a deaf ear and continued to demonstrate to Corixiu. Feeling almost done, Jack yelled, "Dracarys!" Corixiu, who received the order to attack, immediately sprayed out scarlet dragon flames, and Drogon, who heard Dracarys, also instinctively sprayed out black dragon flames. Dragon flames of completely different colors collided and dissipated. Corixiu immediately rushed forward, and Drogon rushed towards Corixiu not to be outdone. The two young dragons were not much different in age and length, but Corixiu was taller and slenderer, while Drogon was a little more sturdy. The fierce fight between the young dragons quickly attracted the onlookers. To them, this was much more exciting than the fights in the Slavers' Bay arena. They were tired of watching fights between humans and beasts or humans, but they might only have this one chance to watch a fight between young dragons, and they could brag about it for decades. "No, stop, Drogon, stop!" Daenerys looked at Jack and shouted anxiously, "Stop them!" Jack said indifferently, "The killing power of young dragons is limited, and they do not have the strength to completely kill each other. For them, it is normal to fight with their own kind. Don't worry. When a group of beasts meet, they need to decide and test their status through fighting. As long as we help them control this degree and make them dare not resist us, that's it. This is too cruel." Looking at the anxious look on Dany's face, Jack was speechless. Of course, Jack also understood Dany very well. Although both the saint and the saint bitch hurt others and themselves, the saint bitch is more disgusting, and the saint sometimes saves others. At this time, Dany has not experienced much. She has just overcome her timidity and introversion, and has not yet begun to learn to give up unnecessary kindness. And Drogon is worthy of being the dragon known as the reincarnation of the Black Death. Although they were evenly matched at the beginning, it is obvious that Corixiu's physical strength began to fail to keep up. Although Carax still fought fiercely, Jack knew that Carax would not win in the end. "Carax, come back!" In order to prevent Carax's confidence from being damaged, Jack immediately asked Carax to come back before he was defeated. Hearing the order, Carax immediately forced Drogon back with a mouthful of scarlet dragon flame, turned around and flew into Jack's arms. But Drogon still refused to give in and rushed towards Jack. At the critical moment, Jack suddenly pulled out a half-meter-long wooden ruler from his waist and hit Drogon's head directly. With a snap, Drogon fell to the ground. The dragon in its infancy was still too fragile. Picking up the fainted Drogon, he threw it back into the cage. "Don't worry, he just fainted and will wake up soon." Dany saw Drogon's still energetic breathing, and then she was relieved. But Jorah said at this time, "Khaleesi, your young dragon should be fine. But I suggest you stay away from this person. He gives me a very violent feeling." Jack looked at the boiling sheep, two-faced turtle, black tiger, and Tom in the Game of Thrones. Of course, Jack still prefers to call Jorah the pure love god of war. Jack respects the pure love warrior very much. Although Jack himself has inherited Wei Wajiji, it does not hinder his admiration and respect for the pure love god of war. But then again, Jorah is really pitiful. In the end, he didn't win Daenerys' heart. In Dany's heart, he has always been a loyal guardian knight. Even Dario, who came later, was better than Jorah Mormont. "Hello, Big Bear." Jorah's face showed doubt. "Do you know me?" "Of course, your father became a night watchman so that you could inherit the family business. And you lost the family business for a woman, and finally sold slaves, and were sentenced to death by Eddard Stark. But you didn't confess your crime, nor did you become a night watchman. You didn't take responsibility and fled to Westeros." Daenerys widened her eyes slightly. She didn't expect Jorah to have such a past, because Jorah didn't look like the kind of person Jack said. At this time, Jorah Mormont was very nervous. Jack's words made him realize that Jack was very likely from Westeros. So he was very nervous now. He didn't know if Jack knew that he had monitored Daenerys for the Iron Throne before. Patting Jorah on the shoulder, "Your cousin is much better than you. You are like a giant baby who loves love." First, you violated the laws of the Seven Kingdoms, then you didn't take your responsibilities and ran to Essos. Finally, you spied on Dany for the Iron Throne to seek wealth. This is really terrible, but don't worry, I will never tell Dany about these things. Jack's voice was not suppressed at all, and he even raised the volume slightly, which made the nobles around him brighten up. There was something to eat. Jack looked at Dany, who was already confused, and said, "What are you looking at? Don't think about it. I won't tell you that Jorah Mormont is a spy for the Iron Throne. Don't even think about it." At this time, Jorah Mormont was the first to react, and immediately said to Dany, "Khaleesi, I am loyal to you. I am not an eyeliner for the Iron Throne. I love you." At this time, the wizard's eyes flashed. If Jorah Mormont could be eliminated, it would be easier to rob the dragon. The wizard stood up and said, "Mother of Dragons, Father of Dragons are from Westeros. Perhaps you should seriously consider what Father of Dragons said for your safety. If you really care about Khaleesi's safety, you shouldn't believe the words of this merchant." Jorah glared at Jack angrily, but Jorah's anger hit a serious guilty conscience. "If you want to attract Khaleesi's attention, then you don't have to do this. If you have the ability, have a fair fight with me." It has to be said that Jorah still has some brains. He was quick-witted and said such a diversion and concept-changing words. And Daenerys came back to her senses at this time. "You are from Westeros?" Daenerys was eager to know the current situation of the Seven Kingdoms at this moment. "When I came about half a year ago, the Duke of the North Eddard Stark set off for King's Landing and became the hand of the king." Daenerys' heart sank. The Wolf family and the Deer family are now more closely connected. She must quickly find a way to expand her strength. As for whether Jorah is really a spy for the Iron Throne, Dany doesn't know, but she knows that Jorah is now one of the few people she can use. So Dany was smart for once. She turned to Jorah and said firmly, "I believe you, you don't have to do this, and Jack Poseidon is a businessman. He won't fight you alone." Jorah was very moved when he heard this. The trust of the goddess was sweeter and happier than anything else for the licking dog Usse. But the seeds of doubt have been planted. The eyes of the masses are sharp. Only the licking dog Ben Dog believes that his goddess will completely trust him. The atmosphere of the banquet became lively again, and Jack, who made everyone satisfied with eating melons, naturally became the center. Many businessmen envied Korakshu, who was eating at the table. Who doesn't want such an obedient young dragon? Everyone kept flattering Jack. In their opinion, Jack will definitely stand at the top of the world in the future. The Father of Dragons has a huge fleet and an obedient dragon, which is much better than the Mother of Dragons, whose future is uncertain. The only pity is that the Father of Dragons does not have the national hatred and family hatred of the Mother of Dragons. Otherwise, they would be happy to support the Father of Dragons, to rule Westeros. Time passed slowly, and the banquet finally ended. Jack bid farewell to the group of merchants who were fooled by him. But Daenerys stayed and found Yannick, hoping that each of the 13 giants could sponsor her 10 ships, and when she took the Iron Throne, she would definitely reward her handsomely. But Yannick showed little interest. For them, investing in the Mother of Dragons was not a good choice. Daenerys is just a 14-year-old girl with no army, no talents, no territory, and no allies in Westeros. The 13 giants have thousands of ships, so giving Daenerys 30 ships is a lot. Moreover, Daenerys is not only short of ships, she has nothing but dragons. The extremely long investment cycle makes it impossible for the 13 giants to see a return. Of course, this is only the idea of some giants, and Xaro Xhoan Daxos has a different idea. He previously invested in business with the intention of seizing the spice market from Yannick's hands, but was tricked by Yannick and suffered a hidden loss. Now capital turnover has become a problem. So he teamed up with the wizard and formulated a very crazy plan, which was to kill the other giants. The wizard imprisoned Dany and the dragon, and he became the supreme monarch of Korth. Korth was originally a monarchy, and later became ruled by the princes of Korth. The princes of Korth were more like a parliament. It was the power struggle during that period that allowed the merchants of Korth to rise. Just after Yannick severely humiliated Dany, when Dany was in despair, Xaro came to Daenerys and comforted her softly. "I'm sorry, although they and I are both among the 13 giants, their vision is really worrying. I think you are a good investment target. You are young and have a giant dragon. As long as you have time, you will definitely be the winner." King of Stro. Dany immediately showed a look of surprise and asked excitedly, "Are you willing to help me regain the Iron Throne?" Zero's face showed an appropriate look of embarrassment. I know you will definitely become the master of the Iron Throne. However, your dragon needs time to grow, and armies and ships are bottomless pits. Although I have a treasure trove that can do this, it is the wealth I have accumulated throughout my life, and I dare not gamble unless... Unless what? Danny suddenly had a bad feeling. As for me, I have the right to support you, but we have to become a family, and you have to marry me so that I won't lose both my life and my wealth. Daenerys took a deep breath. Sorry, let me think about it, my husband just passed away. Of course, no problem, don't worry. I will always entertain you and your tribe. Zero was very patient. It was best to delay for a while. The best opportunity would be after the wizard killed the other giants. The next day, Jack took people back to the Poseidon and released the news. If you want to visit him, you can go to the Poseidon, which is his palace. In this way, in the next week, countless businessmen went to visit Jack on the Poseidon. At the same time, the facilities inside the Poseidon also made them overestimate Jack's financial resources again, because there is no warehouse inside the Poseidon, just like a moving castle. Moreover, the Poseidon's ship planks were very thin and had no ability to defend against pirates. This made them feel that the hundreds of Unsullied on board the Poseidon suddenly became reasonable. In fact, they didn't know that there were usually fewer people on the Poseidon. Because of the plundering along the way, Jack had 100 ships under his command at this time. Normally, there were only servants and a few Unsullied on the Poseidon. In the past week, Jack Guang has collected more than 50,000 gold coins, of course. More of them are various gems and rare treasures. Someone even sent a crown with a red dragon engraved on it with rubies. As a thank you, Jack let the noble lady hold Kolachu for a while. Jack also didn't expect that the comparison and vanity of those businessmen were so strong. Since then, countless merchants have sent rare treasures just to rub Kolachu, so that they will not be inferior to those merchants who have beaten dragons. This is the dog. No, this is the benefit of the dragon being obedient. It knows how to contribute to the family at a young age. Make money, don't be shabby. On this day, Mavis met Jack again, and the two chatted and drank as usual. But just when the two of them were almost done drinking, Mavis suddenly asked, Jack, I wonder what you think of the 13 giants. Jack's eyes flashed, knowing that Mavis couldn't bear it anymore. So Jack pretended not to understand anything and replied, a group of qualified businessmen, shrewd and hypocritical, but they are indeed very generous. Hearing Jack's comments, Mabius's heart sank. It seemed that people from the 13 Giants Chamber of Commerce had given Jack a lot of things recently, but he still had to give it a try. Anyway, if he continued like this, he would be dead sooner or later. He might as well see if he could get Jack's help and fight back. Jack, are we friends? Jack sneered in his heart. He would be a real fool if he really regarded you as a friend. Of course we must be good friends. Isn't it obvious? Then Mabius told the situation of the Korth royal family, and at the same time expressed his thoughts. Jack's face showed shock and embarrassment when he heard this. I'm really sorry, although we are friends, but I also have to think about my men. I have 1,200 Unsullied and a large number of sailors waiting for me to feed them. Well, I can't take the risk, I'm really sorry. Mabi was immediately pleasantly surprised when he heard that Jack still had 1,200 Unsullied. Jack, I still have thousands of standing troops under my command, and together with your 1,200 Unsullied, there is a 70% chance of wiping out the Chamber of Commerce in Korth. By then, their market will be in your hands. Why not give it a try? Isn't this what businessmen like most? A look of hesitation appeared on Jack's face, and a moment later a look of greed appeared appropriately. Okay, but we need to make detailed plans. The wizards are obviously interested in Daenerys' dragon. I feel that there may be disputes within the 13 giants. We may wait for an opportunity, even if we don't reap the benefits in the end. It's not too late for us to start a war. Hearing this, Mavis felt happy again. He really didn't know about this news. Normally, the 13 giants were closely monitoring his actions. But now that I have won over Jack, I not only have more than 1,000 Unsullied people to help me, but I have also obtained such important information. The advantage is mine. With Mavis leaving, Jack began to entertain other businessmen again. He only paid for some drinks and asked Korik to be more clever, and he could directly receive gifts worth thousands of gold coins. As for those who didn't bring any gifts and want to have sex for free, I'm sorry, Captain Jack is very busy and doesn't have time to see you. On the other hand, there were very few people who visited Daenerys, and many even only brought dozens of gold coins as a greeting gift. This is because they don't want other colleagues to laugh at them for not seeing a dragon. Daenerys's dragons are much more violent. Many times strangers will be attacked just by getting closer. At night, after sending away the last group of visitors, a man who claimed to be a giant messenger found Jack. Soon Jack summoned the giant messenger. Jack had some impression of him, and had seen him beside Yannick. Morris asked as soon as they met, "Prince Mavis has come to visit you often recently. I wonder what your excellency and Prince Mavis talked about." Jack looked at Morris with a smile, not to mention the arrogant look on this guy's face. Just by coming here at this time, it was clear that he didn't take him seriously. This person is someone close to Yannick, and his meaning represents what Yannick means. It was obvious that he had been in close contact with Mavis during this period, which attracted Yannick's attention and wanted to give Jack a beating. Warn Jack not to get too close to Mavis. "Did you bring a gift when you came to visit me? I specially took time to see you. If you didn't bring a gift, my son would be angry." As soon as Jack finished speaking, Colaxiu, who was lying at his feet, immediately stood up and spread his wings, spraying a scarlet dragon flame towards Morris. But the distance was a bit far. With Colaxiu's current ability, he couldn't reach Morris, but it also frightened Morris. Morris didn't expect Jack to dare to let his dragon attack him. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Jack say with an embarrassed face, "Sorry." Colaxiu ate a lot of hot peppers and got a little irritated. Seeing Jack apologize, Morris was too embarrassed to say anything else, so he could only say with an unhappy face, "It seems that you can't perfectly control your dragon as the legend says. Besides, I have limited time. Lord Yannick wants to know what you talked about with Prince Mavis." Jack smiled. Kaido cut off his right hand and left ear. "What?" Morrissey was stunned for a moment. Wait, I am the messenger of Lord Yannick. You can't do this. It's like hitting Lord Yannick in the face. It will make Lord Yannick angry." "Oh, it's terrible. Will that white fat pig mess up his own pigsty in anger?" "I changed my mind, Kaido. Cut him into a human pig. I will make him into a roast suckling pig and send him to Yannick, and send someone to notify other Unsullied to come to the port of Korth." Ignoring Morris's horrified wails, Jack smiled as Colaxiu roasted Morris. Newgate showed a relieved smile on his face. This is a qualified pirate king. Blindly being kind will only make his subordinates and enemies more and more presumptuous. Soon the news spread in Korth that Yannick's envoy was burned into a roast suckling pig by Jack. Yannick angrily convened an internal meeting of the 13 giants and proposed that Jack's Poseidon be detained, and then Jack be expelled from Korth. But unfortunately no one responded. Zaro said directly, "I'm sorry, it was your own behavior to provoke Jack. Mr. Jack is a friendly man and will not burn others to death for no reason, especially your messenger named Maurice. Normally, don't take anyone seriously." Zero was secretly happy. Maurice was backed by Yannick and was said to be a relative of Yannick. He was ridiculed a lot after he lost power. However, Zaro's words made Yannick uncomfortable. "I am the leader of the 13 giants. If he slaps me in the face, it is equivalent to hitting the 13 giants in the face. Do you understand?" "No, Yannick, you cannot represent the 13 giants now." The usually silent wizard suddenly spoke. Yannick's face showed an expression of, "Are you crazy?" He didn't understand what happened to these two people today. Several other giants also looked at the wizard in confusion. They simply didn't want to offend Jack. And the wizard and Zaro were obviously going against Yannick. Especially Zaro, who is already on the verge of falling out of the top 13, yet he still doesn't fawn over Yannick. Is this crazy? Of course they didn't know that Zaro had a plan even crazier than they imagined. At this time Daenerys suddenly burst in. "Someone stole my children and I want you to help me find my children." Daenerys yelled as soon as she came in, which made Yannick, who was already confused by the wizard's words, even more confused. "Why are you so crazy? We didn't steal your child and we have no obligation to help you. Find your own children. I have tolerated you for a long time. You are just an arrogant girl. You have no army, no money, no ship. All you have is those 3 bastards who haven't grown up yet. Oh, and your proud but bullshit Targaryen bloodline. Your dynasty has perished. Do you still think you are a princess? It makes me sick to see you being superior to everyone. The men of Korth are 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times more noble than you." These words made Daenerys tremble with anger and tears burst into her eyes. After going back from shopping just now, she found that several of her blood riders had been killed and the dragon was gone. Now she went to the 13 giants to argue, but was humiliated by Yannick. She suddenly felt helpless. His 3 dragons were all his hopes, but now he has lost even his last hope. Please, if they leave me, they will die. At this time, Dany finally put down her pride and put down all her dignity to beg the 13 giants. Yannick disagreed. That's the best. Demonic dragons should not exist in the world. Demonic dragons will only bring suffering and war to the world. The original real dragon also turned into a demonic dragon in his mouth. Of course the true dragon will not die. A strange smile appeared on the wizard's face. I took your child away, but don't worry, the new king of Korth will let the dragon mother take care of her child. Won't die. At this time everyone except Zero looked confused. There is no king in Korth. A smile appeared on Zero's face, and he slowly stood up and came to Dany's side. Now we have it. He didn't expect that Yannick would actually convene a meeting among the giants, which allowed him to gather the 13 giants together effortlessly. It was simply a God-given opportunity. Then Zero spoke out his ambitions in front of everyone without any scruples, and the wizard also came to Zero saying that the dragon mother and her child would spend the rest of their lives in the Temple of the Immortal. However, this move was met with ruthless ridicule from Yannick, a lonely upstart, a charlatan. Ha ha ha. I haven't heard such a funny joke in a long time. However, the wizard proved with facts that he was not a charlatan. Since the appearance of the Red Comet, although he still could not contact the gods, he could still use many witchcrafts completely. Just like now, a dozen wizard clones appeared in the house. The wizard kept smiling. In fact, before the Red Comet appeared, I was really a charlatan. As soon as the words fell, the other giants were all killed by the clones. This scene directly stunned Daenerys. Upon seeing this, Dany was about to leave immediately, but was blocked by a wizard clone. I said, the mother of dragons will reunite with her children. A long sword suddenly passed through the wizard's chest, but no blood flowed out, it was just a clone. Jorah arrived in time and he took Dany and prepared to escape immediately. The witch was right, the person who stole the baby dragon was indeed with Dany. But in the end, another clone of the wizard said, if you want to save your child, go to the Immortal Temple and find me. I will wait for you there. Dany glanced at the wizard clone and followed Jorah away, followed closely by the last Blood Rider. The news here spread quickly. A large number of supporting soldiers and slave soldiers began to riot, and some businessmen who wanted to be in power began to kill each other. Zaro seized the opportunity and gathered all his slave soldiers, preparing to take action when the opportunity came. He had sold his giant ship in order to form some elite slave soldiers. At the same time, Mabius also heard the news of the giant's death, and immediately began to summon the army, and at the same time sent someone to notify Jack. For Mavis, now is not the best time to take action. Once he sends out troops, he will face the encirclement and suppression of all merchants. He will wait for Jack to lead the Unsullied into the inner wall, and then wipe out these merchants together. At that time he will be able to take over most of the chambers of commerce. As for whether Jack will become the next 13 Giants' Chamber of Commerce, Mavis doesn't care at all, and doesn't think Jack will have this foundation, but it is certain that Jack can also get a lot of benefits. Everything is going in the direction of his plan. Mavis is trembling with excitement. The moment when the royal family of Korth is out of control is coming. At this time, Jack on the Sea King also got the news and immediately summoned all his soldiers. A total of 1,500 people, of which 300 were sailors selected by Jack himself in the later period. He couldn't let his Unsullied dominate. With Mavis's intervention, Jack's army entered the inner city, the center of the entire Korth, without hindrance. Jack showed an irrepressible smile on his face. Finally, without the protection of the city wall, the entire Korth became a fish on the chopping board. The only weakness of the Unsullied may be siege. Once the walls of Korth are no longer an obstacle, the Unsullied will be an absolutely elite and invincible supplementary force. The three forces have their own plans and are waiting for the final decisive battle. Jack took 1,000 Unsullied to meet Mavis, while the remaining 200 Unsullied and 300 Sea Guards began to rob the carriages in the city. As time passed, the turmoil lasted for 3 days, until the time was almost up, and the 5,000 slave soldiers under Zaro began to move out. They wore leather armor and held spears in their hands. Their equipment was no less sophisticated than that of the standing army of Korth, and far exceeded the slave soldiers under other merchants. These were all preparations made by Xaro to finally wipe out the standing army of the royal family of Qarth. Just as Xaro was eliminating dissidents, the standing army of the royal family of Qarth also took action. They claimed that the 13 giants had launched a rebellion and started a war. The two parties fought fiercely in the center of Qarth, but the slave soldiers in Xaro's hands had an advantage in numbers. Many merchants who were on the fence also commanded their slave soldiers to participate in the battle against the royal army. Xaro saw that the balance of victory was tilting towards him, and greed appeared on his fat face. Qarth would soon be his. The young dragon's roar sounded, and Korakshu crossed the sky, spewing scarlet dragon flames. After igniting several slave soldiers, it quickly returned. Its main purpose was to boost morale, not to fight. Mavis's face showed surprise. Jack finally launched an attack. If he didn't come again, his army would be defeated. In ancient times, once the loss rate of an army reached more than 30%, there was a risk of defeat. The more elite the troops, the lower the probability of defeat, and they could even fight to the last soldier. But it was obvious that the standing army under Mavis was not among the elite. Jack saw the opportunity and released Korakshu to boost morale when the standing army of Qarth was about to be defeated, and at the same time let his Unsullied insert into Xaro's army from the flank. The standing army of Qarth successfully held on. With the addition of the Unsullied, Xaro's slave army was rapidly defeated. They were originally slaves, so naturally no one would stay to fight to the death. When Xaro saw this scene, his eyes were about to burst. He had been preparing for this moment for too long, but he didn't expect to fail at the critical moment. "Stop! Don't run away, you lowly slaves! Go back and fight!" But no slave paid any attention to Xaro. The fear of death had overcome the fear of the slave owner. Seeing that the situation was over, Xaro could only flee with the crowd. He suppressed his reluctance. His life was more important. After all, as long as he was alive, he would have the opportunity to regroup and make a comeback. Jack took the bow and arrow handed over by his men, and aimed the cold arrow at Xaro's fat kidneys. As his right hand loosened, the arrow made a sharp sound of breaking through the air and directly pierced Xaro's buttocks. Jack showed annoyance on his face. "Damn, this bow and arrow is really hard to practice. I clearly aimed at the waist. Captain, you have made great progress. I believe you will be an archer who never misses in the future." "Thank you for your compliment." Jack returned the bow and arrow to his men, dragged Haishao and walked step by step towards Xaro, who was wailing in pain on the ground. The sizzling sound of the sword on the stone floor frightened Xaro so much that he dared not look back and could only crawl forward desperately. "Please, please, don't kill me, please, please," Xaro kept begging. Just then a fleeing slave soldier stepped on Xaro's hand. The severe pain made Xaro stop crawling, and instead kept squirming and screaming on the spot. Soon Jack came to Xaro, pinched Xaro's face, and looked at Mavis, who was commanding the encirclement and suppression of the slave soldiers. "Look at him. Prince Qarth personally commanded the battle and let his soldiers fight bloody battles while you begged for my forgiveness like a poor worm. This is the difference. But you all made a serious mistake. Without military power and command brains, don't go to the battlefield. He was obviously too excited, so he will die like you." As soon as Jack finished speaking, a slave who had been bought long ago directly pierced Mavis's chest with an arrow. Mavis opened his eyes wide and looked at the sharp arrow piercing his chest in disbelief. All the achievements that had not yet been realized were turned into smoke in an instant. Xaro stared at Jack with wide eyes. This person didn't look like a businessman at all, but more like a conspirator, calculating everyone on the chessboard. The tsunami pierced Xaro's head. Jack immediately gathered the Unsullied to leave the battle, and then led people to rush to the headquarters of the 13 Giants' Chamber of Commerce. Along the way, as long as he saw a vehicle, he would grab it directly. Jack had been waiting for this day for a long time. It was really tiring to pretend to be a serious and honest businessman. At this time, the other 500 people had occupied the warehouse of the 13 Giants, and killed a large number of slaves and freemen who tried to make a fortune in the chaos. When Sorge saw Jack coming, he immediately reported the situation. As one of the few people in the Sea Guard who could read and count, he was lucky to become the leader of the Sea Guard. "My lord, there is not much cash in the warehouse of the 13 Giants, but there are many valuable treasures and goods. Move the most valuable things first. We don't want the goods. If there is no channel for that thing, it will be a waste of time to digest it. Yes. After receiving the order, he immediately ordered to move the most valuable treasures first, followed by gems and gold. With the death of Mavis, the royal family of Korth launched a bloody fight for the position of prince. The royal family of Korth is equivalent to the House of Representatives, and the position of prince is the president of the parliament. Now that the Chamber of Commerce of Korth has been reshuffled, it is not impossible for the future president of the parliament to restore the monarchy and become the real king of Korth. The entire Korth fell into turmoil. The prosperous city was suddenly filled with burning, killing, and looting, with flames and screams everywhere. A large amount of wealth was transported to the Atlantis supply ship under the escort of the Unsullied. The chaos lasted for a day and a night. Jack woke up from the warehouse the next day. He did not return to the Poseidon last night and had been in command in the warehouse. "My lord, you are awake. It will be finished soon. It is estimated that there are 300,000 gold coins. It's a pity that these goods are not easy for us to move. Otherwise the harvest can be multiplied several times." Sorge's tone was full of regret. Most of the warehouses of the 13 giants were filled with unprocessed spices and wine. So it was not a small amount to plunder 300,000 wealth. After all, they were businessmen, and most of their assets were goods. At this time, the immortal temple suddenly caught fire. Seeing this scene, Jack knew that Daenerys had found her dragon baby. As the son of destiny, this little hardship was nothing to Dany. Withdrawing his thoughts, Jack followed the army back to the Poseidon as the last box of treasure was loaded onto the carriage. This trip was very rewarding. No wonder war and looting are the shortcuts to making money. This trip earned 300,000 gold coins. Jack, who returned to the Poseidon, embarked on the journey back to Astapor again. He kidnapped some sailors and helped him drive away 50 large ships on the dock. Atlantis has 170 ships, but including the kidnapped sailors, there are less than 2,000 people, with an average of 10 people on each ship. So Jack is going to buy another batch of Unsullied, and buy some ship slaves. Healthy ship slaves can be qualified sailors with a little training. As for what will happen to Korth next, it is none of his business. He just hopes that Korth will still be prosperous when he comes to collect protection fees next time. After escaping from the Undying Temple, Daenerys found that Korth was in an unusual chaos. At Jorah's reminder, Daenerys looted Xaro's palace and took away all the valuables. Then she drove a medium-sized ship of the 13 giants away from the dock and headed towards Astapor, where it was said that there were world-famous slave infantry for sale. After experiencing several betrayals and conspiracies, Daenerys became more determined to regain the Iron Throne. The feeling of living under someone else's roof and being manipulated by others was simply terrible. 3 months passed in a flash, and Dany stood at the bow and looked at the sea in the distance. Drogon rushed up from the sea fiercely, then threw the fish in his mouth into the air and roasted it with dragon flames. And finally the roasted fish fell accurately into Drogon's mouth. At this time, Drogon was more than 1 meter long, while Viserion and Rhaegal were smaller, less than 1 meter. At this time, the gap between Drogon and Viserion and Rhaegal can be clearly seen. Even though the dragons will continue to grow, there will be a big gap between individual dragons of the same age. The peak of a dragon is between 60 and 80 years old. After a 180 years old, it becomes an old dragon. Although it is larger in size, its endurance and speed begin to decline. "How long will it take us to reach Astapor?" Daenerys asked Jorah. Jorah pondered for a moment and said, "About 3 or 4 months. If we are unlucky, it may take more than 4 months. If there are many favorable winds, it will take less than 3 months. How many Unsullied can you buy with 500 gold dragons?" Jorah shook his head. "I don't know, but Unsullied are very expensive. Ordinary slaves can buy 2 or 3 with 1 silver coin. Unsullied may be more than 10 times more expensive." Hearing Jorah's guess, Dany was a little helpless. Xaro, the fat man, was lying to her. It took 500 gold dragons to search the entire palace. Fortunately, she did not agree to marry him at that time. Seeing Daenerys' hesitation, Jorah comforted her. "We may be able to buy ordinary slaves. With a little training, they can also be good soldiers. But they are not elite. The nobles of Westeros have knights in full armor. It is useless to rely on those few people alone, not to mention that there is no money to buy weapons and armor, so it is useless to buy those slaves." Jorah remained silent. What Dany said was right. Even if ordinary slaves were purchased for training, if there was no money to buy weapons and armor, it would be better to buy Unsullied. At least Unsullied also gave equipment. At this time a Dothraki came over. Khaleesi, a very large fleet was found ahead. Daenerys came to the bow after hearing this, and soon found the huge fleet ahead. The moment she saw the flag, Dany recognized the owner of the fleet. The blue sea monster on the flag was too obvious. It was Jack's fleet. He does have a powerful fleet, with about 200 ships. If we can get his loyalty, it will be much easier to counterattack Westeros. Jorah's heart tightened when he heard this. If Jack really surrendered to Daenerys, would he still have a good life? Khaleesi, Jack is a very dangerous person. Excuse me, the probability of him surrendering to you is 0. I know I just said it casually. The royal family of Korth tried to win him over, and the 13 giants also tried to win him over at the beginning. As a result, one of these two families is still in civil strife, and the other has been completely destroyed. How can he be a good person? Daenerys is no longer the innocent little girl at this time. She can see clearly that Jack is a very cunning businessman. He may not even be a businessman, but a pirate or a plunderer. After all, there is no merchant fleet that has more than 1,000 Unsullied on it at any time. Slow down and keep a distance from the fleet ahead. Daenerys ordered that she must keep a distance from Jack's fleet. After all, on the sea, if the other party has any intentions, she may be imprisoned by Jack as a reproductive tool, and the 3 young dragons will also add 3 dragon riders to Jack's forces. This is not that Daenerys maliciously speculates about Jack's character, but that Daenerys now thinks of the worst in everything she does. At this time, Jack on the Sea King was enjoying the erotic dance of Ellie and Jaeger. As sisters who were born as bed slaves, they would naturally dance in a lot of coquettish ways. Jack had no idea of Daenerys' speculation about him, and he knew that he would not care about Dany's thoughts. Whether Dany wanted to win him over or was full of vigilance and alertness to him, he didn't care. If Jack himself did not have any plugins or his own plugins were not strong enough, he might choose to hug Daenerys' thighs, but now he does not need to kneel and lick any Game of Thrones character. Keep playing the music, keep dancing, Jack said after opening his mouth to eat the fruit handed over by Vitelli. As for where the fruit came from, it was naturally when he was replenishing supplies along the way, and the locals were so kind that they gave it to him. Ellie came to Jack in a gloomy manner and said coquettishly, "Master, my sister Yager and I are very tired. Can we take a rest?" "We are tired, so let's take a rest. I'll go to the deck to take a look." Jack came to the deck, which was full of busy sailors. Jack looked at the 12 giant ships around the Sea King and the 200 ships of different sizes outside and felt extremely satisfied. These were all the assets he had worked hard to rob. And of the 300,000 gold dragons he had robbed in Korth, Jack was going to take out 200,000 to transform his fleet, convert all merchant ships into warships, and transport ships. As for directly purchasing warships or robbing Navy warships, the cost is much higher than the transformation of merchant ships. With the remaining money, Jack can buy 3,000 Unsullied and some technical slaves, and then choose an island to build a land base. The place Jack chose is the Seychelles Islands. This archipelago is close to the Sothoros continent, and is surrounded by reefs. The climate on the island is suitable for growing food and development. Reefs are the enemy of shipping at any time, but it is not a big problem for Jack. With Poseidon, he can draw a safe sailing route. In this way, reefs are no longer a deadly danger, but a natural protective barrier for the Seychelles Islands. If it were not for the heart of the ocean, Jack would definitely choose some coastal city-states, then directly divide the land and become the king, and then slowly conquer the inland. However, the emergence of the heart of the ocean forced Jack to settle for second best, and choose a large number of archipelagos in the Game of Thrones world as his own territory. However, this cannot be said to be a second best. It just means that starting from scratch is more troublesome and takes longer. But it is not without benefits. With these islands as bases, Jack does not have to worry about being strangled by others with food, and he can also develop technology on his own. As long as there is a strong navy support, aren't Westeros and Essos both excellent choices for colonies? For example, if Jack had enough troops at the beginning, even if there were only 5,000, Jack could have renamed Korth Atlantis Overseas Province in Essos. But unfortunately, Jack only has more than 1,000 people, most of whom are illiterate and do not have the conditions for occupation. It is better to slowly accumulate strength and cultivate your own management talents before carrying out the colonization plan. 3 months passed in a flash, and Essos seemed to have no winter, and the weather was always hot. Jack was very curious. Is it only when the long night comes that Essos will enter winter, because the winter in Essos is just a little lower, not even below zero. In contrast, the north of Westeros is almost snowy all year round. Once winter comes, the north is like being wrapped in snow, and no other color can be seen. The weather in Game of Thrones is capricious, and the lack of stable seasons is also the reason for the development of Westeros. The barren north occupies nearly half of the territory of the 7 major countries, but the registered population is only a few 100,000, and even the army can only gather less than 30,000 people. As for the fact that the warriors of the north can fight 3 with 1, this is more like bragging nonsense. If it were not for the genius strategy of the young wolf lord Robb Stark, the north would have been driven back by the Lion family long ago. Captain, we will be able to reach the Slavers' Bay in about 3 days. Should we go directly to Astapor, or should we transform the fleet first? If we go directly to Astapor, we may not be able to buy the Unsullied if we are late. Now that Daenerys has come from Korth, it is unknown when all the Unsullied in Astapor will be liberated. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Soon 3 days pass in a flash, and Jack steps on the dock of Astapor again. 13 giant merchant ships directly occupy most of the docks in Korth. Jack returns to Astapor after a year. With 300 Unsullied, Jack brings a large number of rare treasures into the city. Jack is ready to release the news that he wants to buy 3,000 Unsullied. If you think the price is right, you can come to consult. But he soon cancelled this plan. Jack first asked Newgate to contact Hago Visley to see if he can harvest a wave of cheap goods from the small slave owners first. After Newgate received the order, he led a team of sea guards to the residence of Hago in his memory. As a small slave owner, Hago's residence was not luxurious, but the decoration was very good. When he heard that Jack had sent someone to visit, Hago was very happy, thinking that it was another Unsullied who came to buy him. But Hago soon found out that he had underestimated Jack. 2 bed slaves took Newgate into Hago's palace. It was more like a living room than a palace, specially used to receive big customers. It sounded better to call it a palace. It's been a long time since we last met. I wonder why Mr. Jack didn't come in person, Hago asked. Newgate was old and cunning. He understood that this was because Hago looked down on his slave origin and blamed Jack for not coming to see him in person. Newgate chuckled. Captain Jack is very busy now. He has 200 ships, 13 of which are huge ships to manage. I am the mate, and I came to see you because Captain Jack is thinking of the past. Hago was shocked. He didn't expect that Jack's strength had expanded to this extent after more than half a year. Although he didn't completely believe Newgate's words, Hago's attitude became respectful. After all, if Newgate was not bragging, then Jack really thought of the past by asking Newgate to see him. Then Newgate continued, Captain Jack is going to buy 3,000 Unsullied this time. For the sake of our old friendship, 25 gold coins each. You or your friends can take as many as you want. I will give you 1 more gold dragon for each Unsullied afterwards. Hago's eyes suddenly slit with smile. What's the name of the old friendship? He just wanted to buy the Unsullied from him at a low price. Those big slave owners all set the price at 30 gold dragons. Only small slave owners like them would sell at a low price, but he was also happy to serve. Merchants are supposed to make a profit from the price difference. After all, small slave owners like Hago have a circle. If Hago plans this matter properly, he can make an extra 1 or 2,000 gold dragons. Hago hurriedly poured wine for Newgate. Master Jack means that I will take as many as I have under my command, 25 gold dragons each, and give you 1 more gold dragon for each one. Yes, but only 3,000. That's enough. There will be about 1,800 Unsullied. Hago roughly estimated. Newgate nodded. Okay, I'll report to the captain. You can just take the Unsullied to the dock after you've counted them. Okay, you've worked hard. Hago clapped his hands, and a slave came up with a small box. Hago took the box and opened it. Inside was a red gem ring. He pushed the box to Newgate. This is a small gift from me. Please accept it, Captain Newgate. Newgate smiled and put the ring down. Then I'll go back first. You must hurry up. The captain originally planned to buy it directly for 30 gold coins. I finally persuaded the captain to let me come here to ask you. Thank you, thank you. Hago sent Newgate away and immediately asked his slaves to notify his slave owner friends to come to his house, saying that there was a big deal. That night, 23 slave owners had gathered at Hago's house, and the number of Unsullied in their hands ranged from dozens to hundreds. After Hago's questioning, he found out that there were 2196 Unsullied, including the 78 Unsullied in his hands. This number was 400 more than Hago had estimated. Hago, you called us to your house in such a hurry, didn't you just want to count how many Unsullied we have? That's right, I thought you got another batch of high-quality bed slaves, so happy for nothing. Hago pressed his hand, signaling everyone to be patient. Business has been bad recently, and you have accumulated so many Unsullied. You don't need to tell me that. There haven't been many large-scale wars in the world recently, and there are few frictions between city-states. The best-selling products now are bed slaves and skill slaves. Hago laughed and said directly, I have a friend who is going to buy a batch of Unsullied, but the quota is only 1,000. Everyone was silent after hearing this. Everyone wanted to send out the goods in their hands. They, a group of small slave owners, did not have a fixed sales channel. If the Unsullied in their hands could not be sold for a long time, they would definitely be stuck in their hands. No one likes old slaves. I wonder if you can talk to your friend and take all our goods. Hago showed a perfect look of embarrassment on his face. I can try, but the price... Hago paused for a moment and continued. My friend's budget is limited. If you can lower the price to 22 gold dragons, I am confident. 22 gold dragons is too low. 23 gold dragons, what do you think? Hago looked embarrassed and said unconfidently, then I will ask tomorrow 23 gold dragons to see if he can take all. If he can, you can bring all the Unsullied to me and I will trade. The rest of the people thanked him one after another. The training cost of the Unsullied is very low, and it may not even cost 1 gold dragon. The main cost is time, but in the same way, if the Unsullied is a little older, no one will buy it. The guests would rather spend more money to buy the young Unsullied from the big slave owners. If someone could directly purchase the goods from them now, they would be able to make a significant comeback without having to worry about the upcoming off-season for Unsullied sales. Early the next morning, Hago arrived at the dock. After boarding the Poseidon, Newgate met with Hago. As soon as he met Hago, he looked happy for Newgate. Mate Newgate, I have good news. Huh? Newgate was a little surprised. Your wife gave birth? What kind of news could make you so happy? We have gathered a total of 2,196 Unsullied and 25 golden dragons each. What do you think? 2,200? Newgate was a little surprised. He didn't expect Hago to be able to gather so many Unsullied ones. With such a large quantity, there won't be any problem with the quality, right? Newgate wondered whether Hago had taken out the sick or older Unsullied to make up the number. After all, he was a slave before and knew the treachery of these slave owners all too well. Hearing this, Hago slapped his chest loudly and said, I guarantee there will be no problem. If you want it, you can bring it over tonight. Then you can check it in person. If it's not good, just don't leave it. Newgate said with a smile, What are you talking about? We all want it. Let's trade it tonight. 20. Hago immediately laughed loudly and said, No, just count it as 280, and the extra 16 will be regarded as gifts from me. For Hago, the Unsullied he took from other small slave owners was only 23 golden dragons. With more than 2,000 Unsullied, Hago could easily earn more than 4,000 more golden dragons. Newgate enthusiastically invited Hago to stay for a drink, but Hago refused, saying that he still had to prepare for the transaction, and left in a hurry. After sending Hago away, Newgate went directly to the Poseidon Palace, the cabin of the Poseidon, which was decorated with a large number of rare treasures. And Jack was resting on a throne made of huge sapphire, wearing the scarlet dragon crown given by the unknown young woman from Korth. Newgate came to Jack and whispered, Your Majesty, there are 296 Unsullied in Hago. He calculated them as 280, each with 25 golden dragons, for a total of 54,500 golden dragons. Jack nodded. The price was not bad. Last night he sent people to check out the opinions of several good philanthropists. In the end, these good philanthropists were only willing to lower the price to 29 gold dragons. But Jack knows that there has been no large-scale war in Essos recently, and the sales of Unsullied have declined, so these good lords have a lot of Unsullied in their hands. And they still have more than 10,000 Unsullied in reserve. Even so, they are still unwilling to lower the price. Jack originally prepared 200,000 to renovate merchant ships, but now he has changed his mind and plans to buy more Unsullied. In addition to the more than 2,000 points in Hago's hands, he also reserved 100,000 gold dragons for the Unsullied from several great benefactors in Astapor. 100,000 gold dragons bought a total of 3,450 Sullied ones. Originally he could only buy 3,448, but the group of benefactors generously gave him two. As a token of his gratitude, Jack decided to visit the homes of these good lords when Daenerys liberated Astapor. For this reason, Jack has sent people to inquire about whether these benefactors have any information on small treasury. There are 8,000 Unsullied and 14,000 reserve Unsullied in the entire Astapor. Originally, Jack was planning to buy 10,000 Unsullied. But when Jack worried about buying up all the finished Unsullied, Dany's life path changed. Without obtaining the Unsullied, Slaver's Bay may not be in chaos, nor can Essos. And Jack himself has no way to fish in troubled waters and make a fortune from the war. Moreover, the 200 ships under Jack's command consume a lot of supplies every day, so Jack still has to leave about 100,000 to buy some supplies. So after much consideration, Jack chose to buy Unsullied ones worth about 150,000 gold dragons, but Hago's ones only cost 25 gold dragons, so Jack bought some more, for a total of 5,646 Unsullied ones. When the transaction is completed, plus the 1,028 Unsullied that Jack already has, the number of Unsullied under his command will reach an astonishing 6,074, nearly 7,000 Unsullied. Coupled with the navy guards formed by Jack himself, the number of armed soldiers under his command will reach. This strength is completely worthy of facing some city-states in Essos. It's just that with so many people, the supplies consumed every day are astronomical. Jack must quickly establish the first archipelago base. Soon night fell, and Hago arrived as scheduled with 2,200 Unsullied. Hago selected 4 from the reserves, and directly made up a round number. I selected 4 high-quality Unsullied ones from the reserves, and gave you a round number. If you want to buy them next time, remember to contact me. The price is definitely right. Jack looked at Hago, who was smiling in front of him, and kept laughing in his heart. You should survive Daenerys' knife first. Okay, next time I buy, I will give priority to your products. The quality is indeed good. Then dozens of Unsullied appeared, and they began to help Unsullied on the scene untie the slave collars. Hago looked at this scene with slight surprise, and finally couldn't help but remind him, it is not a good thing to cut a slave's collar. It will make them think too much and forget that they are slaves. Jack smiled and waved his hand. It's okay, I can control them. Hago didn't say anything when he saw this. Anyway, the goods were already taken. Even if the group of Unsullied ran away, it would not be his fault. At noon the next day, Jack also completed the transaction with several big benefactors, and successfully obtained 3,450 Unsullied. Then Jack dispersed these 650 Unsullied and incorporated them into the original 1228 Unsullied army. After redistributing the Unsullied troops, Jack kept 2,000 Unsullied for himself, and then asked Newgate to go to Noreen and Yunkai to buy a batch of bed slaves and skill slaves who can reproduce normally, escorted by the remaining Unsullied, and go to the Seychelles to explore the way first. Handed a nautical chart to Newgate. After approaching the Seychelles, you must follow the route on the nautical chart. Otherwise it will be very dangerous, understand? This nautical chart was drawn by Jack based on Poseidon's reminder, and it was quite detailed. Newgate solemnly put away the nautical chart. He trusted Jack. He gained dignity from Jack. Even if Jack asked him to go to the sea to fight sharks alone, he would not hesitate at all. As for Jack, if you doubt someone, don't employ him. If you employ someone, don't doubt him. He believes that Newgate will not betray him. How can he achieve great things if he is timid? Even if Newgate really takes his people away and becomes independent, there is still Poseidon. Even if Newgate runs to the ends of the earth, he will be caught. After receiving the order, Newgate immediately took the entire Atlantis, including all the ships of the Sea King, and left Astapor. Jack took 2,000 Unsullied and stationed near Astapor, just waiting for Daenerys to arrive and make a fortune. The savings of the slave owners of Astapor for hundreds of years. Just thinking about it makes Jack a little excited. With this money he can quickly develop the archipelago base, and convert all his merchant ships into warships. Half a month passed in a flash. Estepor, the Colosseum. Jack sat in the first circle of the stands waiting for the fight to begin, but judging from the bustling crowd around him, this fight was almost nothing to watch. The surrounding arenas were all bustling with people, and the huge crowds formed a huge contrast with this place. But this just happened to suit Jack's idea. He didn't like crowded places, but he wanted to see the real Colosseum. It just so happened that this fight without highlights perfectly met Jack's requirements. While Jack was waiting, several noble ladies came to sit beside Jack. These 3 young women were about 30 years old, with plump figures and beautiful faces. The 3 of them originally planned to go to another Colosseum, but when they saw Jack bringing a few unsullied to this less crowded Colosseum, they became interested. They had never seen this unfamiliar handsome boy, who looked only about 16 or 17 years old, and was obviously not a local. But his handsome and tough face and tall figure made them a little moved. Jack looked at this scene without saying anything. There have been several ladies who have played with him during this period. Of course, for those ladies he was the one being played, but both sides had a lot of fun, and the ladies here played very lavishly. More importantly, these ladies have high standards, which makes their cars in good condition. Then the 4 people found the owner of the arena and booked a separate box, which is at the bottom of the circular arena. But it is slightly higher than the arena, which is the most suitable place to watch the battle, and it can also isolate the voices and sights of other people. Of course, the box money is paid by these women. It happened that the battle in the arena began to enter the preparation stage, and a middle-aged man in his 30s walked into the arena. A woman lay in Jack's arms and introduced, "This slave is called Jay. He was a carpenter's skill slave before. Guess what? This slave fell in love with the master's daughter. It's so funny, how dare he, a slave, fall in love with the daughter of a kind master." Another woman whose headlights were turned up looked playful and mocking. Jack smiled and asked, "What happened next?" Then the slave wanted to elope with the master's daughter, and the girl was so infatuated that she stole a bag of gold dragons to elope with the slave. "Love-brained?" Jack said, what he thought.
It's not that he was mocking this love, but the behavior was a bit childish. If you elope, you must plan carefully, including the destination, money and transportation. Love-brained? That's a good word. Then it was discovered by another slave, and the slave told the master about it. The master was furious and wanted to execute the 2 directly. After all, the master had many daughters. The 2 fled overnight after knowing it, but were stopped by other slave owners at the dock, and everyone was watching the joke. Finally, facing the rain of arrows, the girl stood in front of the man and was shot into a female hedgehog. It's really not worth it. Marrying a slave owner casually can guarantee wealth and prosperity in the second half of your life. And generally in this kind of marriage, the couple will be together. Each party played their own game, and there were few cases of love in marriage. In the end, the man was heartbroken and was captured alive. He had been fighting with others in the arena. In my opinion, this slave still did not love the girl, otherwise he would have chosen to die with her. But the most interesting thing is that the owner of this arena is the slave who informed on the matter back then. In 12 years he has become a businessman from a slave. After listening to the young woman's story, Jack also understood what happened. He had heard that love is always tragic, not to mention the story of a slave boy and a noble girl. Looking at the man who pierced the enemy's throat with a spear on the field, Jack started to think, it goes without saying that it was difficult to go from a carpenter to a 12-year-old man in the arena, and the purpose of persisting was probably only revenge. In the following battles, the man almost never defeated his opponent in more than 3 rounds. The women around Jack were extremely bored. It's so boring. We can't even afford a combat slave. This arena should close down as soon as possible. After saying that, the 3 of them stood up and started to dress. After they were dressed, the woman threw a coquettish look at Jack. Sisters will leave first. You have enough capital and good skills. Sisters like you very much. As the 3 unknown women left, Jack also got dressed. Jack found the owner of the arena, a lean middle-aged man in his 40s. "Wanna buy ghee? You make an offer," Jack said straight to the point. The Dalo's eyes flashed with surprise. This small arena has long been out of pocket. Recently it is dealing with its slaves, and ghee is the most difficult one to sell. It's just because Jia has become nervous since Martha's death, and the whole person is not normal, but Jia's combat power is very strong, and Daedalo doesn't want to sell it cheaply.
How about this? You give me 50 gold royals and I'll sell it to you at a loss. Daedalus saw that Jack liked G very much, and he opened his mouth with a big mouth. Jack threw out a gold royal directly. That's all. I just bought a few thousand unsullied. I advise you to be less worried, so as not to walk dangerously at night. Daedalus' eyelids jumped. Bought a few thousand. Unsullied? Are you Mr. Jack Poseidon? Daedalus asked cautiously. Slave owners are slave owners. Good masters are good masters. Slave owners are more often businessmen, and good masters, great masters, and wise masters are nobles. Recently it has been spread among the good masters, and even among the slave owners, that there is a grudge named Jack Poseidon who has cleared the good master's backlog of unsullied. Do you know me? Jack asked curiously. I know, of course I do. Your wealth and generosity are famous in Astapor. Daedalus took Jack to the cell where G was imprisoned. Daedalus stepped forward and said, G, there is a big client who wants to buy you. This nobleman is very rich. You may have the opportunity to become rich in the future. He said nice things, but the mockery on Daedalus' face was undisguised. I also want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have been a slave my whole life. They are all slaves. So why should that damn Martha treat you differently? Oh, maybe I should call her nickname, Female Hedgehog. Ha ha ha. Jack stared at Daedalus' back, the light in his eyes flowing, and he didn't know what he was thinking in his heart. G looked at Daedalus coldly and said nothing. Over the years I have heard this kind of ridicule countless times. From the initial anger, now I only have revenge in my heart. He could already keep a straight face easily. Handing the chain holding J to Jack, Daedalus couldn't help but smile happily. While complimenting him, he saw Jack off from the arena. Returning to the camp outside the city, many businessmen had gathered here. People had to eat, drink, and defecate, let alone 2,000 unsullied ones. This is exactly what Jack wants. There is no need to send people around anymore. The first thing after returning to the camp, Jack opened the chain around Jay's neck. From now on you will be one of my bodyguards and no longer a slave. Do you understand? Jay still looked at Jack expressionlessly as if he was not interested at all in whether he was a slave or not. Then Jack asked several unsullied people to take G to take a bath and wash himself. The stench on G's body was really unbearable. At midnight, apart from the regular footsteps of the patrolling unsullied, there was only the chirping of insects in the entire camp. In a small tent, G suddenly opened his eyes and then quietly stood up. After looking around, he found that there were no unsullied patrolling nearby, so he was about to slip away. As soon as Kija stepped out of the tent, Jack's voice came from the side. Want to take revenge? Jack had already anticipated what G was going to do, especially after Jack untied G's chains. G said nothing, but nodded firmly. G believes that this is his last chance for revenge. Even if he cannot avenge Martha's father, he must at least kill Daedalus. This is a nightmare that has plagued him for 12 years. He was afraid that after Jack took him away, he would never come back, or find Daedalus. How do you take revenge? You have no armor or weapons, and Daedalus is accompanied by several gladiators wearing leather armor. Do you think you can succeed? Jai was silent for a while, and then he spoke for the first time. His voice was hoarse, just like the brakes on the 28-inch big bumper car that Jack had in his previous life. I have to go or I'll never get another chance. Jack nodded slightly. If you don't go today, you really have no chance, because it's noon now, and it will be early morning the next day in a few minutes. But there will be opportunities on the second day, the third day, the fourth day, and every day after that, so don't rush this moment. I know you are eager for revenge, but you have no chance of success, so why not wait? But there's no chance of waiting any longer, right? While I'm still in my prime, while I'm not old yet. Jack waved his hand and motioned for G to follow him. G hesitated and chose to follow G to the tent. At this time the table in the tent was filled with wine and meat. Jack motioned for G to sit down. The two sat opposite each other, while G seemed slightly uncomfortable. He didn't know what medicine Jack was selling in his gourd. In his eyes, Jack was a slave owner. Why don't you eat it? Jack looked at Jay. Afraid of poisoning? Please, killing you is really not worth my money for a dose of poison. My little sister can kill you easily. Of course, with the sword in her hand, but that's not important. Seeing that G refused to eat, Jack tore off a chicken leg, took a hard bite, and said, "What slaves eat is similar to pig food. Are you really not going to eat it?" G swallowed and then couldn't help but start eating and drinking. Jack slowly ate the chicken drumstick in his hand while looking at Jack. Jack really fit the role of bodyguard in Jack's mind. He is 1.9 meters tall and his body is covered with muscles and scars. It is hard to imagine what he has gone through in the past 12 years. There was only the sound of chewing food and swallowing wine in the tent. After eating for half an hour, G patted his belly with satisfaction. After eating the big fish and meat, I felt a lot more oil and water in my stomach, and the haggardness and weakness on my face disappeared. It was obvious that I had recovered well. When Jack saw G finish his meal, he asked, "You have no chance of winning in revenge by yourself, but if I help you in revenge, I will definitely succeed. How about that?" G did not answer, but asked, "What do you want?" "Everything." "Everything?" Jack nodded. "Everything about you, body, soul, loyalty, sword, everything." "Deal." G agreed to Jack's conditions without hesitation. To him, Jack's conditions were the same as nothing. He was still wondering what Jack wanted from him, but he didn't expect that he was just using him. For G, who had nothing, even if Jack didn't help him get revenge, he was still a slave and had to obey Jack's orders. "Why do you want to help me?" G asked. In his opinion, if Jack wanted him to work hard, there was no need to do this. "Why?" Jack asked back. "Who do you think I am? A slave owner?" "I'm not a slave owner. I bought you because I saw your fighting ability and was interested in your experience. But you are not my slave, but my guard. I want a loyal guard. Instead of a slave who wants to escape and seek revenge every day, should I lock your feet every night?" Jia didn't say anything. He already understood what Jack meant. "You are a good person." Jack poured himself a glass of wine. "Don't give me a good person card. I don't need it. Don't rush to take revenge. I estimate that Astapor will be in chaos in the next few months, and there will be opportunities at that time." G stood up and came to Jack, and knelt down on the ground with a plop. "Master, G offers all his loyalty to you." This was the second time that J knelt down willingly. The first time was when his first master promised to return his freedom, but in the end he was sold to Martha's father. "Don't call me master. I told you I don't have any slaves." "Understood, master." "It's up to you. I'll tell you a story. His story is similar to yours, but there are many differences. His name is Viego." Then Jack began to brag about the story of the ruined king. For a pure love warrior, Viego's deeds are as fascinating as the Bible. And Jack also likes others to listen to his bragging with full attention. Astapor, Marina. After Daenerys got off the ship, she looked at Astapor curiously. "Is there a world-famous infantry regiment here? The dilapidated city walls and land do not look so prosperous. Are the rumored Unsullied really strong?" Daenerys has some doubts about this. After all, the city walls of Astapor are really far worse than those of Korth. Jorah promised with all his heart, "Don't worry, Khaleesi, I guarantee that the Unsullied Legion will not let you down." "I hope so." At this moment, Daenerys frowned, and a little girl appeared not far away. The little girl showed an innocent smile and then took out a gashapon and handed it to Daenerys. Upon seeing this, Daenerys thought it was some gift from the little girl. The little girl twisted with her bare hands, signaling Daenerys to follow his example and open the gashapon. Daenerys smiled and was about to imitate the little girl's way of twisting the gacha, when she was suddenly knocked off her hand by a man in a black robe. Then Jorah quickly stepped forward and strangled the man in black robes by the neck. But Dany accidentally tripped and fell to the ground due to the attack by the man in black robes, and the gashapon in her hand also fell to the ground. There were cracks on the gashapon, but in Dany's slightly surprised eyes, a green scorpion with a human face crawled out. At this time, Daenerys finally realized that something was wrong and shrank back crazily, but the scorpion was crawling faster and was about to hurt Daenerys. An arrow shot out and nailed the scorpion to the ground. Then another arrow pierced the girl in front of Daenerys, but the girl did not bleed after being shot by the bow and arrow, but turned directly into a piece of clothing. At this time, the man in black robe rushed up and cut off the scorpion's head with a knife, but Jorah just realized what happened. At this time, the girl reappeared on a high platform and screamed at Daenerys, her dark blue lips and teeth making people chill. Then the girl turned and ran away, leaving Daenerys saying in shock, "Wizard!" The little girl just now is the clone of the wizard. This is also the scary thing about the wizard. Since the magic revived, their weird magic has begun to come in handy. On another high platform, Jack took back the bow and arrow in his hand with satisfaction. Master, your archery skills have improved so quickly, it's really surprising, she said. Ha, how come you've learned how to flatter someone? Jack teased. To be honest, your archery skills have really improved a lot. Jack shrugged. Hard work will pay off, especially if the conditions are good. Jack has been working hard on practicing archery in recent months, and has naturally made great progress. Then Jack brought tea and the 4 Unsullied to Daenerys. Long time no see, Daenerys. Jack said hello. Hello, thank you, Jack. You are welcome, it's an honor for you to still remember me. Jack said politely. Then Jack looked at Barristan again. I have long admired my name, Ser Barristan Selmy. Barristan frowned and looked at Jack. Do you know me? Are you a noble of the 7 kingdoms? No, I am just a son of a pirate, but I have heard many legends about Westeros, such as Barristan the Fearless, Arthur Dane, the Sword of Dawn, etc. Barristan Selmy, this man was no worse than the Sword of the Dawn when he was young. Although people say that the Sword of the Dawn is slightly stronger than Barristan, in terms of deeds and glory, there is no gap between the two. As for the specific situation, Jack didn't know. After all, the Sword of Dawn was dead in the hands of Ed Stark, and it became the only stain in Ed Stark's life. Barristan knelt down on one knee. I am Barristan Selmy, your father's royal guard. I swore to protect your family, but I failed. I ask for your forgiveness, and allow me to join you. The royal guard. Daenerys looked at Barristan in disbelief. She couldn't believe that one of the strongest warriors in the 7 kingdoms actually traveled half the world to join her. At this time, she couldn't help but think of what Jack had said before. Jorah was an undercover agent of the Iron Throne. Thinking of this, she decided to take Barristan under her wing. No matter what aspects she considered, Barristan was worthy of being under her command. Barristan Selmy, I am touched by your loyalty. From today on, you are my queen's guard. Are you willing to defend my safety to the death? It's an honor, your majesty. Bang bang, Jack suddenly clapped his hands. Congratulations, Dany. Sir Barristan is a top warrior, and has his own sense of honor. He is worthy of trust. Listening to Jack's profound words, Daenerys' eyes flashed. Yes, Jorah and Barristan are both trustworthy members of the Queen's Iron Guard. This sentence moved Jorah Mormont behind him to tears. What could be more touching than Her Majesty the Queen's trust? Jack glanced at Daenerys in surprise. Sure enough, preaching is useless. Broken bones are the best textbooks. And Daenerys at this time is obviously more mature than Jack thought. At least this method of winning people's hearts is still possible. Didn't you see that Jorah behind her was almost moved to tears? Are you going to buy the Unsullied? Jack asked. Daenerys was slightly surprised. How do you know? A former princess of Westeros, with the mission of restoring her country. What could be more important than a well-disciplined army? You are right, I am here to buy the Unsullied. Restoring the country requires not only dragons, but also troops and ships. Dany looked at the Unsullied behind Jack and asked, How much did you buy the Unsullied? 30 gold dragons. Those kind-hearted people look at me like a big injustice. Jack said helplessly, like an honest man who dared not speak out after being slaughtered. 30 gold dragons? Daenerys couldn't believe it. A slave wants 30 gold dragons? To be precise, they are slave soldiers, infantry who know no fear, will never run away from battle, and will absolutely obey your orders. The Unsullied are expensive, but they are indeed top-notch infantry. They are fearless even when faced with Dothraki cavalry charges. After hearing Jack's words, Daenerys pursed her lips. If calculated based on 30 golden dragons, even if she sells the ship in her hand, she can only buy 23 Unsullied. Seeing Daenerys' appearance, Jack changed the topic. Would you like to have a drink? My camp has the best wine in Slaver's Bay. Jack always has an honest smile on his face, and paired with Jack's golden white hair and handsome facial features, he looks like a warm neighbor next door. But Daenerys declined Jack, although Dany herself was a little addict and could not withstand the temptation of male lust. But now she still had to go find out about the Unsullied in the city. Looking at Dany's leaving figure, Jack was not disappointed at all by Dany's rejection. He had no shortage of women. He wants to play the mother of dragons, but is not in a hurry. Daenerys has a very high eye for choosing lovers, and Jack definitely meets Dany's needs. He is confident that he can easily become Daenerys' knight. Regardless of appearance or power, Jack perfectly meets the requirements. Like Dario, he was dressed exaggeratedly in the original work, like a blue-haired killer, but even so, he could still charm Daenerys with his sweet words. Looking at Jack, he is powerful and handsome, especially because his Blackfire bloodline gives him golden white hair and lavender eyes, which attract Daenerys all the time. It's just that Jack makes Daenerys feel very dangerous, so in most cases Dany is always wary of Jack. But Daenerys herself is a woman with great physical needs, and she even had lilies with her own little maid. As long as Daenerys controls the 8,000 Unsullied and becomes Queen of Slavers Bay, she will definitely choose a suitable male favorite and lover. Dario in the original book is a good example. Poor Jorah the Bear was directly passed by Daenerys, in terms of appearance. In fact, Jack is not only interested in Dany, but also many women in Game of Thrones are attracted to Jack. For example, Margaery, the Queen of Crooked Lips, Jack would like to know if she would still crook her lips under certain circumstances. After Daenerys brought her men into the city, she contacted some slave owners and found that the price of the Unsullied was around 30 gold dragons. Especially after Jack cleared out a wave of Unsullied inventory, many slave owners gave up their plans to reduce prices. "Your Majesty, the Unsullied are too expensive. We can choose to buy some ordinary slaves for training, and then look for allies in Westeros. You must know that Westeros is not stable now." Barristan tried to persuade him, saying that he had heard some news about Westeros on the way to Essos. Daenerys shook her head. "Let me think about it myself. Let's find a place to stay first." "Sir Barristan, you go tell Jack that to thank him for saving his life, I will host a banquet tonight." "Understood, Your Majesty the Queen." Barristan took the order and left. Dany frowned slightly, thinking about how to accumulate enough capital. As for what Barristan said about going to Westeros to find allies, Dany is very doubtful about the loyalty of the Seven Kingdoms. She's in no rush to return to Westeros until her dragons grow up or she has her own army. At night, when the moon just came out, Jack, led by Barristan, came to the place where Daenerys was hosting a banquet. Dany was wearing a refreshing silk dress that exposed the V-shaped groove on her chest. Her long silver-white hair was spread around her lower back. She was extremely beautiful under the light of the moonlight and torches. Jack couldn't help but glance at Daenerys twice. Unlike in the American TV series, Daenerys was beautiful at all times, not the kind that ruined her appearance with a smile. "Thank you for saving me this morning, Jack. You are welcome to come." Jack waved his hand quickly. "You're welcome. It's just a casual favor. I happen to be wandering around the dock. No need to thank you." At this time, Jack quietly looked at the surrounding decorations. He could see that Daenerys was very attentive, especially the table of valuable wine and food. Jack suspected that Daenerys might have something to ask of him. After all, he bought thousands of Unsullied and at the same time had a slight friendship with Daenerys. However, Jack didn't point it out. Instead, he acted as if he didn't know anything and chatted while drinking at Dany's warm invitation. As a modern man, Jack naturally easily made Dany happy and excited. Soon Dany and Jack were drinking too much, but Dany was really drunk, while Jack was just pretending. At this moment, Daenerys didn't know when her delicate body was pressed against Jack. She picked up a glass of wine and drank it down unhappily. Jack's eyes flashed when he saw this, as if a woman had a sullen and unhappy expression next to you. Then 9 times out of 10, this chick is going to use the combo of beauty trap and bitter meat trap. Sure enough, one second the two were chatting about interesting things in life, and the next second Daenerys began to complain. From being forced to marry the King of Horses at the age of 14, and then struggling for nearly 2 years, there is still no hope of returning to the country. As Dany recounted her tragic experience, mist began to appear in her eyes. Although Daenerys did ask Jack for help, her cries and tears were not fake. It can be said that she had no happy days in her more than 10 years. As for why he didn't cry to Jorah or others, it must be because Jorah Mormont and other men are not good looking. As a pretty girl, Daenerys' different treatment of handsome boys and middle-aged men is very obvious. "You are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. Your eyes are as bright as stars. It won't look good if you cry." After a while, seeing that Jack had no intention of helping her at all, Daenerys couldn't hold it any longer. "Jack, do you think it's possible for me to regain the Iron Throne?" Dany brought the topic to her own restoration of the country. "Of course you have 3 dragons. When you grow up, I believe you will be able to take back the broken Iron Throne that was stolen by the Snatcher." Jack almost said the broken chair, but luckily he changed his mind in time. But I don't have an army. Well, can I ask you to lend me part of the Unsullied? When I take back the Iron Throne, I will make you the Duke of the North, the Riverlands, and the Vale. Because Dany knew that Jack knew a lot about Westeros, she didn't explain too much, and just promised to be the Duke of the Three Lands. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't expect Dany to be so courageous and send half of Westeros away, especially the Riverlands and the Valley, both of which are great. Although the former is often the center of the battlefield, it has fertile soil thousands of miles away. The latter is also a paradise, easy to defend but difficult to attack. As for the north, Jack has no interest at all. Not to mention the harsh climate. The economy is also very poor, and he has to face the White Walkers and savages outside the Great Wall all the time. You are the most beautiful girl I have ever seen, and I want to help you, but the Unsullied one in my hands has been arranged elsewhere. Daenerys' eyes darkened when she heard this, and she knew that Jack was not so easy to fool. But Dany's expression immediately changed and she asked, "But what?" "But I can provide you with a solution. In return, I only want the valley." The valley is a very nice place. It is easy to defend but difficult to attack on land, and it is close to the sea to the east. The geographical location is perfect. But I have a way to let you get all the Unsullied for free, Jack said confidently. Daenerys pouted her lips immediately, losing a bit of maturity and becoming a bit girlish. But then again, Dany seemed to be only 16 years old, and Jack was only 18 years old. This is not funny at all. The good master is not a fool. Jack laughed. The good master is not a fool, but he is very pedantic.
What a chat.
Daenerys tilted her head slightly with a puzzled look on her face. What does this have to do with the good master's pedantry? Astapor has been in business for hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, the good masters have always exchanged money for goods, and no one has ever bought the Unsullied, and then directly attacked Astapor. But no one has done this, which does not mean that it is impossible to do so. After the transaction is completed, the Unsullied will absolutely obey your orders. Even if it means killing the good masters who trained them, they will not hesitate. Daenerys was stunned. You mean I should buy the Unsullied and then use them to occupy Astapor? But I don't have money and the good masters won't sell them to me. Besides, if I don't buy all the Unsullied from the good masters also have Unsullied, and Astapor may not be so easy to occupy. At this time, Daenerys had not thought of using the dragon to get something for nothing. Then why don't you buy all the Unsullied in the hands of the good master? I bought a batch of Unsullied before. Considering the replenishment speed of the Unsullied, the good master should still have 8,000 or 9,000 Unsullied, and there are also a large number of reserve Unsullied. You can exchange dragons for the Unsullied in the hands of the good master. My children? Daenerys looked reluctant. They are my children. I can't sell them as goods. Jack waved his hand, signaling Daenerys not to get excited. You also said that Drogon is your child, but the Unsullied are not the children of the good master. After the Unsullied are sold to you, they will obey your command. But will Drogon listen to the good master? Daenerys suddenly came to her senses. She understood how Jack wanted to get something for nothing. To put it bluntly, he was using the Unsullied trading bug to pit the good masters. But what? You also have dragons, why don't you do it yourself? In Daenerys' view, Jack also has dragons. And Jack's dragons are even more obedient and easier to deceive the good master. Because if you do this, you will be hostile to the entire slave bay, which is equivalent to destroying the rules of the game here for hundreds of years. Jack said half-truthfully. In fact, Jack had thought about doing this, but the benefits of doing so were far less than letting Daenerys provoke the Essos War. And Jack wanted to quickly develop his own power, rather than playing any war games with these slave owners. Jack stood up and prepared to leave, and at the same time began to induce, think about it yourself. The slaves here live a life worse than death every day. Maybe they also hope that there will be a kind queen to lead them to break the shackles on their necks. After speaking, Jack left. Daenerys looked at Jack's back and kept thinking in her heart, and finally decided to go and see what the life of slaves is like tomorrow. If the slaves are really living a life worse than death, and expect someone to lead them to regain their freedom, then she doesn't mind being a slave liberator. Not only for the freedom of the slaves, but also for herself. If she can really occupy the slave bay, she will have enough wealth and population to convert into warships and troops. In the original novel, Daenerys liberated the slaves in the 3 cities of Slave Bay. Perhaps most of the reason was because of her kindness, but there must have been considerations for wealth and population. However, Daenerys, who had no political experience, made a mess of the governance of Slave Bay. At the same time, Westeros was also not peaceful. King's Landing, the Prime Minister's tower of the Red Castle. Ed looked at the records in the book with a frown on his brow. He suddenly realized that the 6 million foreign debts owed by Robert might not be a big problem. The big problem was that his 3 children did not seem to be his own. The book clearly recorded that the descendants of the Baratheon family and other families were all black-haired, while the 3 Joffrey brothers and sisters were all blonde. Ed rubbed his brows. This matter was a bit difficult to deal with. Robert was out hunting at this time. If Robert knew about this, he would definitely execute the 3 Joffrey brothers and sisters. The children were innocent. But if he didn't say it, he would be sorry for his good brother Robert. After a while, Eddard decided to take a compromise approach. He decided to go to Cersei first and let Cersei take the 3 children back to the Westerly, and then Robert would decide whether to launch a war against the Westerly. I have to say that Eddard was a little too upright. If someone who knew a little about politics came, he would choose to take the initiative before Cersei could react. But Eddard naively chose to tell Cersei first, and let Cersei run away quickly. I went to get an IV today. My cough was too severe and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't stand it, and had to get an IV for more than 2 hours. The next day, Daenerys brought Jorah and Barristan to the Pride Square. At this time, there are many little good masters in the Pride Square who are introducing their slaves to the guests, including not only the Unsullied, but also gladiators, bed slaves, technical slaves, and other slaves. Among them, the bed slaves made Daenerys feel uncomfortable, because the several female bed slaves in front of her were naked like livestock, allowing guests to check the condition of the car. Daenerys quickly found today's target, the great good lord, Krasny. Krasny was wearing a yellow silk robe, sitting calmly on a chair, constantly admiring his new group of Unsullied ones. Since Jack purchased a batch of Unsullied, they have quickly replenished their stock, and they are all very young Unsullied. It doesn't matter even if they are sold for a few more years. Soon a servant came up and whispered in his ear, and then he nodded. The servants left quickly and soon brought Daenerys over, both sides looking at each other. Tell her that my name is Krasny, and I am one of the biggest benefactors here. There are 9,000 Unsullied in the Astapor market now. Ask her if she really wants to buy them all. 30 gold dragons each. Krasny said to the little black girl next to him. This little black girl is one of the classic characters of Game of Thrones, Missandei, Daenerys' right-hand man. It's a pity that Cersei ordered the mountain to behead her head in the end. Otherwise, Daenerys might not have massacred the city, nor would she have been assassinated by 2B Jon Snow. Missandei translated the words of the good lord to Daenerys, but Daenerys was not in a hurry to buy it. Instead, she said she wanted to take another look to see if the Unsullied was truly a top infantryman. After Missandei translated these words to the good lord Krasny, he directly said disdainfully, "This white-haired bitch can never afford it, and she still thinks she is a Targaryen princess." Dany glanced at the good lord and pretended not to understand Valyrian. Daenerys spoke in the common language, so Krasny naturally thought that Dany could not understand him, so he spoke quite rudely. But Missandei would definitely not translate it this way. She had an inexplicable affinity for this silver-haired girl. Master Krasny said that there are 9,000 Unsullied in Astapor. Even if you have 20 gold coins each, you can't afford it. Please consider it carefully. Missandei conveyed Krasny's words tactfully. I haven't decided to buy it yet. What if these Unsullied are just the rubbish you boasted about? Then wouldn't I be deceived in vain? Daenerys said with a mocking tone. Seeing Daenerys' mocking look, Krasny frowned and looked at Missandei. Upon seeing this, Missandei hurriedly translated. She said she wanted to know the true situation of the Unsullied to prevent herself from being deceived. Ha! You ignorant bitch of Westeros. Krasny insulted Dany as he came to a small group of Unsullied. Krasny then began to describe the training process of the Unsullied, while Missandei followed the translation without any mistakes. The more Dany listened, the angrier she became. She didn't expect such a cruel training method in the world. 9,000 Unsullied would have to be killed from at least 36,000 children. Then Krasny casually cut off a piece of flesh from the Unsullied's chest, without the Unsullied blinking an eye. Krasny nodded with satisfaction upon seeing this, and then said to Daenerys, "The Unsullied know no fear, will not flinch, and will absolutely obey your orders." Once 3,000 Unsullied repelled 50,000 Dothraki cavalry. At this time Dany was no longer in the mood to go to Krasny to brag about the Unsullied's achievements. She was extremely angry at the good lord's contempt for life. But Dany still suppressed her anger for the time being. "I bought them all." Missandei glanced at Dany, and then translated. "Master," she said, "she bought them all." Krasny said with a mocking look on his face, "This bitch doesn't think that I will sell the Unsullied to her if I just scratch her head, right?" Krasny received the news when Daenerys Targaryen first arrived in Astapor, and also sent people to find out Daenerys' family background. Even if the ship is sold and those Dothraki are added, they can only buy 23 Unsullied, who are also the parents of dragons. Krasny can only say that Daenerys is really terrible. Master Krasny said if you have enough money to buy all the Unsullied, there are 9,000. Not only the 9,000 Unsullied, I also want to buy all the reserve Unsullied. Missandei frowned. She had never met a customer who wanted to buy a reserve Unsullied, but she still translated it to Krasny truthfully. Krasny shook his head and turned away directly. In his opinion, Daenerys was just wasting his precious time. Let her decide how much she wants to buy tomorrow. If she wastes my time like this again, I will kick her out of Astapor, damn bitch. Missandei immediately translated to Dany, "The master asked you to think about it for a day, and you must consider it based on your own financial strength." Daenerys didn't speak when she heard this. She just looked at Missandei, and then looked at Krasny's back. A look of disdain flashed in her eyes. At this time she had determined that Jack's method was basically feasible. Since Jack is not willing to be an enemy of Slavers Bay or even the entire Essos for the freedom of slaves, let her do this. Although Daenerys would still take this path according to her original destiny, but now with Jack's deception she is undoubtedly more determined in her heart. At noon the next day, Daenerys found Krasny's again, and said that she really wanted to buy all the Unsullied. This time there was not only Krasny's but also Grazdan and other great philanthropists and archons. So she still wants to buy all the Unsullied? This damn bitch doesn't really think this is fun, does she? Krasnys has lost his patience and said to Grazdan, "This little bitch may think that she can get our Unsullied with her buttocks." Grazdan also shook his head. He really thought that someone could pay to buy all the Unsullied. "I have a dragon, I'll give you one in exchange for the Unsullied." Daenerys showed a confident smile on her face. Missandei couldn't help but widen his eyes. "You know, the value of a dragon is better than thousands of troops." After hearing Missandei's translation, Krasnys also looked at Daenerys in shock. He didn't expect Daenerys to be willing to exchange dragons for Unsullied. However, Krasnys still said greedily, 3. 1. Daenerys' voice was unquestionable. 2. 1. Krasnys glanced at Daenerys angrily. "Damn Westeros bitch. I want the biggest one." "Deal. I also want this translator." Daenerys agreed to Krasnys' request, exchanged the largest young dragon, and asked for Missandei at the same time. But this made Jorah and Barristan anxious. "Your Majesty, one dragon is worth thousands of troops." "Shut up, I've made up my mind." Daenerys interrupted them directly. Daenerys did not tell Jorah and Barristan about Jack's plan of getting something for nothing. Finally, Daenerys and Krasnys agreed to hand over the person and the dragon in one hand in the square outside the South City tomorrow afternoon. On the way back, Daenerys suddenly turned to Jorah and Barristan and said, "If you question me in front of outsiders again, then you can find another queen." After that, Daenerys turned around and left, leaving Jorah and the other two looking at each other. After a moment, Barristan said, "Her Majesty has grown up and looks like a queen." "Yes, except when facing that black fire," Jorah said in an inexplicable tone. "Do you seem to be very resistant to the Blackfire rebels? Or do you simply hate Jack Poseidon because Daenerys has some affection for him? Anyway, Jorah, I hope you can understand that the Queen's thoughts are not something we can control. We just need to offer our loyalty. In addition, now that the Targaryen dynasty has been destroyed, Blackfire is no longer a Blackfire rebel, but one of the Targaryen bloodlines, and perhaps also an ally of Her Majesty's restoration in the future." Barristan's words made Jorah Mormont silent and depressed. He understood that Barristan had said it very tactfully. How could a bald middle-aged uncle like him be more important in Dany's heart than the young and promising Jack? As Barristan said, the Targaryen dynasty has now collapsed. Whether it is a black dragon with a red background or a black dragon with a red background, they all have a common name: the remnants of the Targaryen dynasty. It's just that the red dragon flag is the orthodox remnant. And Jack's Blackfyre bloodline is no secret. Although the Blackfyre's bloodline is cut off on the surface, there are still many female Blackfyres who survived at that time, and there are still a few Blackfyres in Essos. But even so, Jorah still believes that he loves Dany deeply. After reorganizing his mood, Jorah chases after Dany's back. Barristan looked at this scene without saying a word but was thinking in his heart how to make Daenerys give up the plan to replace the Unsullied with dragons. But it is probably impossible. Dany is very determined. Time soon came to the afternoon of the next day. At this time, Krasnys had been waiting for a long time in the square outside the south wall of Astapor. He received all the Unsullied of Astapor, a total of 9,100 people, under his own hands, stroking the command whip in his hand, and he was looking forward to Daenerys's biggest dragon. Soon Daenerys came to the agreed place with her men. 4 Dothraki carried a rectangular wooden cage to the center. Daenerys glanced at the slave owners who were watching, and then looked at the square formation of 9,000 Unsullied behind her. Taking a deep breath, Dany opened the cage, and then the irritable Drogon climbed out. One foot was tangled in chains. Drogon was inexplicably irritated. He didn't know why his mother put annoying shackles on him. Flying into the air with wings, Daenerys dragged Drogon floating in the air to Krasnys. Krasnys looked at the black dragonfly above his head with a fanatical look. Even though it was still a dragonfly, its ferocious appearance was still domineering. He had seen Jack's dragonfly before. It looked very evil, and it was far different from his own. Thinking of this, Krasnys and Daenerys exchanged the chains and command whips in their hands. Looking at the golden whip in hand, Daenerys stepped forward and raised the whip in her hand. Unsullied. All the Unsullied immediately put their shields on their chests and responded to Daenerys's call. This scene attracted the attention of many people. Forward. After the Unsullied army marched forward in an orderly manner for several steps, Daenerys ordered to stop. At this time she was sure that the Unsullied had begun to obey her orders. At this time Krasnys could no longer catch the irritable Drogon. Hurry up and tell this damn bitch that his beast is not obedient. But what no one expected was that Daenerys turned around and said in Valyrian, "Real dragons are not beasts. Real dragons are real dragons." Krasnys was confused and angry. "You can speak Valyrian? I am Daenerys Targaryen, Stormborn, with the ancient blood of ancient Valyria flowing in my body, and Valyrian is my mother tongue." After that Daenerys looked at the Unsullied again and then ordered, "Unsullied, kill the good master, kill the soldiers, kill everyone with a whip, but don't hurt the children, and cut off the chains of every slave." Krasnys looked at Daenerys in shock, and couldn't believe that Daenerys actually wanted to rob the thieves directly. At this time an Unsullied directly took action and killed a slave owner who didn't react, which directly caused chaos. "I am your master, kill her, kill her!" Krasny hadn't let go of the chain in his hand at this time. And Jorah and Barristan saw this and hurriedly drew their swords and entered combat mode. The entire square was filled with not only the Unsullied sold to Daenerys, but also a few Unsullied serving the slave owners and Astapor soldiers. The entire square was in chaos. Daenerys turned around with a confident look on her face, and whispered, "Dragon flame."